What if the stories we tell ourselves become reality and take shape in the world? This is the reality of Tatari. It is not alive in a conventional sense, yet it moves, it acts, it responds. It exists wherever fear, rumor, and belief converge. It's like we give Tatari form by just communicating with each other. The shared stories that grow with repetition, they all give Tatari form. In the Nasuverse, this is more than a metaphor. It's a force that can alter reality, manipulate perception, and under certain circumstances persist longer after those who first imagined it are gone. Among the figures most infamous for interacting with the phenomenon is Wallachia. His experience and usage demonstrate the destructive potential of Tatari when human attention lends its focus and power. Sion, by circumstance, shows that Tatari is not bound to a single individual, but travels with the currents of perception, leaving traces of influence wherever it manifests. Carl Jung once said, "Man is not what he is, but what he imagines himself to be." Tatari embodies this perfectly because its imagination made tangible, fear turned into reality, and thought given form. In the sections that follow, we will examine Tatari's nature, its manifestations in Melty Blood canon, and the role Wallachia and Sion play. By the end, Tatari will not feel like an unknown concept, but a haunted reflection of imagination. Tatari is strange because it doesn't behave like anything we normally would call a being. It's not a spirit or a monster hiding in the dark. Tatari is a curse, a phenomenon. When enough people believe in something, worry about something, or can't stop repeating a story, Tatari treats that shared thought like a blueprint, as if it shapes around the tension in the air. And what makes it unsettling is that it doesn't choose its form. People do. A rumor that is spread is enough for Tatari to latch onto for that singular night. Each encounter feels surreal, like reality is slipping. Wallachia's connection to Tatari is the clearest example of this, not because he created it, but because his presence made it easier to see how it behaves. Under Wallachia, Tatari was something that could reshape events in small but deliberate ways. Due to the machinations of Wallachia in the past, Sion became an unwilling anchor for Tatari. This shows how persistent Tatari is. It doesn't need a singular anchor, it can have many. At its core, Tatari can be seen as a reflection of us, through our fears, expectations, and the things we believe in. It's not alive, but it grows. It's not a character in a traditional sense, but it shapes the story all the same, and that's what makes it so unnerving. Tatari exists because people do. To interact with the physical world, Tatari requires a host, a focal point through it can be perceived. Hosts act as anchors, allowing the phenomenon to step into reality. Without a host, Tatari remains invincible. During the night of Wallachia, Wallachia was able to shape and warp the environment. Streets, buildings, and even the night itself seemed to twist as collective fears and rumors became a horrifying reality. As mentioned, Sion became entwined with Tatari through her vampiric transformation at Wallachia's hands before the events of Melty Blood. Due to the specific requirements for Tatari to manifest, Sion can suppress her vampiric urges. However, during Tatari events, these suppressed urges can surge to the surface. While not in the same capacity as Wallachia, Sion can act as a host. Wallachia demonstrates the phenomenon at its most potent, a full-scale distortion of reality through fear and rumor.
タタリが発生するのはこの町ですか。不確定要素が多すぎますが、対抗勢力が多いのはプラスと考えるべきでしょう。真相27層、大校舎、土着の根血たち、この全てを把握した上で今度こそ。限界はまだ先なのに演出が始まっている。ワラキアの一部が生き残っているということですね。もうそこのまま楽に。いえ、私の理性が消える前に今度こそ決着をつけなくて。追いついた。今夜があなたの最後です、タタリ。私の仇、いえ、エルトナムが受けた汚名、その全てをここで洗浄する。
ほう、勇ましいな、エルトナムの娘よ。その様子ではきちんと準備はしてきたのだろうね。
無論リーズバイフェの形見を天樹の概念武装で打ち出す。プログラムを消すことはできなくともかすかなほころびを与えることはできる。
それならば意義がある。いいだろう、シオン。君の理論を試してみたまえ。我が血に連なる後継者として見事たたりを砕い
間に合った。私はまだ人間だ。今タタリを倒せばきっと。
無駄だよシオン。残念だが吸血鬼になった人間を治す術はない。いかに医学が進歩しようと覆せぬ病名を知っているかね。それは死だ。シオン・エルトナム・アトラシア。認めたまえ。君は私に血を吸われた時もう死んでいたのだと。
Shion's connection highlights more subtle dynamics. A host whose suppressed instincts can partially utilize Tatari. In a sense, this makes the phenomenon's manifestation unpredictable and uniquely tied to the host's nature. Tatari's most striking characteristic is how it manifests in the world. It doesn't have a fixed form, rather, it adapts to the strongest fear, rumor, and expectation that is circulating among people. The phenomenon can warp the environment itself, creating a reality-altering effect for one single night. Streets, buildings, and even the atmosphere transform itself. Familiar spaces turn into unsettling and distorted spaces. These manifestations are temporary, disappearing once the Tatari event concludes, or the collective focus shifts onto something else. During this night, Tatari can produce temporary avatars, figures that embody the narrative and anxieties of human imagination. For example, in Melty Blood Actress Again Current Code, many of the alter egos and characters seen on the select screen are reflections of Tatari's influence. These avatars are not independent beings, they only exist as long as the phenomenon sustains them. For example, Shion's vampiric instincts, usually suppressed under normal circumstances, can emerge through Tatari's manipulation. These manifestations allow the audience to perceive the fears, stories, and expectations of the city brought to life. However, it should be noted that Tatari's power is governed by rumor and belief, and not by the intentions of the host. Even when a manifestation emerges in combat or demonstrates traits of the original, it is ultimately an extension of Tatari. As mentioned, these avatars are manifestations of Tatari and are bound to the cycle and vanish once the event concludes. Under extreme circumstances will an avatar remain after the event concludes. Using White Len as an example, she's able to keep Tatari Nania around after the event concludes. The manifestation of Tatari is as much about the phenomena itself as about the human mind that feeds it. So this shows how perception and the supernatural entwine in the Nasuverse. At its core, Tatari is powered by the collective weight of human fear and rumors reaching a critical state. With these conditions, Tatari can manifest itself. Without these conditions met, it can't appear at all. Rumors don't merely enable Tatari's existence, they define its shape. It doesn't invent its own identity, it mirrors what people believe to be true. In this way, the phenomenon becomes an echo of human imagination, shaped by what is said, feared, and repeated. Fear acts as a catalyst that gives these rumors weight. It sharpens Tatari's behavior, determines how it acts with its surroundings, and influences the severity of the distortions it creates. In a way, Tatari doesn't judge fear and rumors, it simply materializes them. Through Tatari, the Nasuverse demonstrates the dangerous truth that collective perception has consequences. When belief is shared on a large enough scale, it can distort reality itself. Tatari stands at the intersection of narrative, perception, and the supernatural. It shows that stories, when repeated enough, don't remain harmless. They gain form, presence, and the power to reshape the world around them. The most well-documented and influential manifestation of Tatari occurs during Shion's saga of Melty Blood. While Melty Blood itself is a spin-off that takes place after the events of Tsukihime, it provides the clearest canonical framework of the understanding of Tatari. During the night it manifests, the phenomenon is at its most visible, where fear, rumor, and human perception converge to a single reality-altering event. And during the night of Atlasia, the city becomes a closed space, dominated by Tatari's influence. As mentioned, the environment becomes distorted due to the influence of Tatari. Locations warp, streets empty, and the sense of time fractures. It should be noted that these anomalies aren't permanent alterations to the world. Once the Tatari cycle ends, these distortions vanish and things return to normal as if nothing happened. Atlasia serves as the most well-known anchor during this event. His presence gives the audience a source of recognition for Tatari. As mentioned, Atlasia should not be considered the creator of this phenomenon. It operates independently in response to the content and intensity of human fear and rumor. In a sense, Atlassia's role is to stabilize its appearance, not to dictate its behavior. This distinction is crucial because Atlasia has its own goals, while Tatari fulfills its own purpose. Shion's connection to these events is rooted in her past. Their interactions throughout the original games is pivotal to knowing their relationship. Sion is revealed to be a direct descendant of Atlasia. It should be noted that even though Wallachia was defeated, Sion remains a vampire. An unseen event would also transpire after his defeat. The remnants of Sion's blood, known as Dust of Osiris, became the anchor of Tatari and Melty Blood actress again. Notably, this second manifestation of Tatari occurs without Wallachia as the primary host. This is important because it shows that Tatari doesn't require the same anchor every time. Ironically, Wallachia himself can appear as a Tatari-generated avatar. This reinforces the idea that Tatari can operate independently of its former host. To further clarify, neither Sion, the Sion, nor Dust of Osiris controlled Tatari. Just like Wallachia, there are focal points that allow the phenomenon to take form, but the driving force remains the same. The collective belief of the populace gives it power. Just like the original event brought forth by Wallachia, the city once again experiences distortions and anomalies shaped by fear and rumor. And as before, when the cycle ends, these manifestations disappear. Despite how overwhelming Tatari can appear, the phenomenon has its limits and weaknesses. Its existence is bound by very specific conditions, and without them, it can't manifest at all. For starters, the fundamental limitation is its dependence on fear, belief, and rumor. If the collective belief weakens, disperses, or fails, Tatari can't take form. As mentioned, Tatari requires an anchor to be an active event. Figures such as Wallachia and Dust of Osiris act as focal points that allow it to manifest in the physical world. In a sense, its presence is conditional, shaped by circumstance rather than intent. Another critical limitation is duration. Its existence is bound to a fixed window, most famously a single night. No matter how severe the distortions become, the phenomenon eventually collapses when the cycle ends. Finally, Tatari can't act beyond the boundaries of the rumor driving it. Using Tatari Nani as an example, if a rumor describes a killer stalking the night with a knife, then the manifestation must fulfill that role. Tatari can't contradict or override the expectations imposed on it. In this sense, it is powerful, but constrained. A phenomenon capable of reshaping reality, but has to work with imposed limitations. Tatari is significant not because of its power, but because of what it represents within the Nasuverse. It shows the idea that human belief has weight, that perception, when shared widely enough, can shape reality itself. It can be said that Tatari exists because people believe, fear, and repeat stories until those ideas gain substance. Within the Nasuverse, Tatari stands out as something born entirely from collective imagination. This makes Tatari especially dangerous. It weaponizes belief without discrimination, reflecting whatever narrative gains traction among the masses. This means that the scale of destruction is tied to the scope of the rumor itself. Tatari shows how imagination, when left unchecked, can be catastrophic. It also serves as the narrative bridge across the Nasuverse, particularly in Melty Blood, with the exception of Ryogi Shiki, who is a guest character. A large portion of the cast and Melty Blood actors again can serve as Tatari manifestations. Characters from Tsukihime play essential roles in confronting and resolving these events. Shiki Tohno acts as critical support to Sion. Without his involvement, her efforts to confront Tatari would have failed. Ako Aozaki's presence lingers in the background, observing events unfold, reinforcing her role as an unseen constant. She would assume her role as a final boss in certain versions of Melty Blood. Ultimately, Tatari reinforces the idea that reality is not shaped by power alone, but by perception. Stories matter. Belief matters. Tatari is the proof that a phenomenon can turn a rumor into a consequence. Tatari is what happens when human fear, rumor, and exception are allowed to accumulate. Through Wallachia, Sion, Dust of Osiris, and many of the temporary avatars born from during its manifestation, a clear pattern emerges. The more a story is repeated, the heavier it becomes, until it no longer remains imaginary. This is what makes Tatari so unsettling within the Nasuverse. It doesn't impose itself on humanity, it's powered by humanity. In a sense, it shows people what they already fear and forces them to confront it. What makes Tatari so haunting is it shows that our imagination is not as harmless as we think. What we picture, whisper about, and even dread eventually gains form. Tatari exists as proof that belief alone, shared, repeated, and feared, can become reality for a single night. And so, we must ask ourselves, if fear and rumor can become real for a single night, what does that say about the stories we keep telling ourselves every day?